Hi, welcome to another episode of Broadcasting Northwest Florida. I'm Jennifer Connolly with Florida's Great Northwest. Today we are interviewing Dr. Aaron Schmerbeck with Able Operations. I've gotten to know Aaron as we've been working together on a very important research project funded through a grant Florida's Great Northwest received with Triumph Gulf Coast. And Aaron really took a regional approach of our labor market and helped us did some research analysis and looked at the industries and the demand for employees, and then how that matched up with the supply of the talent from our local training and education providers. So, Aaron, I'm so excited to have you with us today. I'd love for you to first tell our audience a little bit about Able Operations and then share with us about what you found through your analysis.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. It's a great opportunity to be here, so thank you for inviting me. My name is Aaron Schmerbeck, and Able Operations is an economic, workforce, and policy consulting firm that specializes in providing research, guidance to local and state government entities. In addition, I work a lot with nonprofit organizations and private sector businesses. The previous work that I've done with Able Operations includes labor market supply and demand analysis, some of the work that I've done with Florida's Great Northwest, including some economic and fiscal impact and feasibility analysis. In addition, some of the performance measurement, evaluation, and survey research is also included, and some data analytics at Able Operations. One of the first insight that we wanted to look at in the Northwest Florida region was the industry level data. So what does the industries look like in the region currently, and what is the growth going to look like over the next 5 or 10 years expected in terms of demand? And to do that, I pulled in data from the 12 county region and looked at two components here, both the size of the industry currently, along with the wages that are being paid. So in this graph, you know, I enjoy looking at graphs and tables. And so for this one, we're looking at on the x-axis, or along the horizontal axis, we have growth, what's expected to grow over a 5-year period. And so obviously, the further the right, the higher growth is going to be expected for the industries. On the vertical axis, we have wages for employees. And in this case, where they intersect, roughly about $45,000 is the average for the entire region. So for this project, we really wanted to focus on kind of the upper right area of this graph. We really want to see kind of high wage or above average wage earnings, along with growth that's expected to be probably above average, and where we expect to see some demand in these industries. From the graph here, we can see the larger the circle, the more concentrated, or the number of jobs that are currently in the industry. So when we look at government, of course, with Department of Defense and national security that we have in the Northwest Florida region, that's our largest employer in the region. Roughly about 18% of all workforce is related to that government, or this green bubble. The other two that really stuck out in terms of size were trade, transportation, and utilities is the second largest, kind of that reddish bubble, a little bit below the average wages. And to the right, the third largest is the orange professional and business services. Those three account for almost half of all the jobs in the Northwest Florida region. So they definitely are concentrated in those three areas. But in addition, we also wanted to focus on some of the other high growth, high wage industries, like manufacturing in the light pink. We see very high wages, well above the regional average, closer to 65,000, and expected to see some strong growth over the next 5 years, closer to 7%. In addition, we also considered financial services, and the important factor in terms of growth and higher wages with the darker green circle there, as there is starting to be a pretty big presence in the Northwest Florida region for real estate and financial services that we start to see in that industry trends. So we first dove into this analysis and tried to narrow down some of the industries and what we see from a demand perspective for skills in the labor market. So after we figured out what industries we wanted to look at, we dove deeper into the occupations and the skill sets that were required. This required looking at the analysis of the institutions, the education institutions, and what they're providing for the region, the talent that's graduating or coming out of those schools. This is not going to be a perfect supply and demand analysis, including everybody that has a specific degree or that comes to the region with a degree from somewhere else, but it does give us some idea of what the region is producing in terms of talent and how that matches up from a demand perspective. Some of the occupations that we wanted to look at included engineering from the higher level, maybe bachelor's or master's degree level, in addition to some of the technical jobs or the technical education jobs, including welding, truck and bus driving, computer support specialists, drafting, some of those other occupations that help support these industries as well. Some of the findings were very interesting. We found that welding, for example, had well above or at least met the demand in the region currently, and the trend has been exponentially growing in terms of the number of welders that are coming out of the local institutions. This was great to see, given the recent investment into the region at some of the local technical colleges. If this growth continues, we would expect to see welding be in a good supply in the region to help employers that might need that skill set. This amount of, from a concentration perspective, this skill set was roughly about double what you would see relative to the US when we look at demand and supply perspective. So we can tell that it's highly concentrated in the region relative to the US. So again, definitely an asset for the region in terms of the skill sets that are coming out in welding. We also noticed a high number in concentration or higher than the national average in terms of computer support specialists. So this helps feed into some of the degree programs that might go on to receive a computer science degree or computer engineering degree. And we saw that the region is providing a fair amount of computer support specialists that would help support all three or four of these industries that we discussed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, we noticed other some other growth opportunities in the region. One example was aircraft maintenance and aerospace engineering technicians. This was one that we really recognized the growth and the payoff potentially in the investment that was made into those programs. Again, similar to welding, we're starting to see an exponential growth in the number of completions in these programs that will hopefully support and provide the skill sets needed by employers in the region.
Aaron, thank you so much for providing our listeners with a deeper dive into the industry sectors and the occupational data. I think that's so important as we look to really chart our future and figure out where we need to go as far as attracting new companies and investment to Northwest Florida. And that's why I'm really excited about what's to come, which is a phase 2 analysis. And again, thanks to Triumph Gulf Coast and the grant that we've received to do that. So could you share with our audience a little bit about what that will entail?
Sure, Jennifer, thank you very much. Yes, we're very excited to start phase 2 of this project. We will be updating the analysis that was previously done. So we'll look at deeper dive again into the industries and the talent that's in demand. Has anything changed over the last year or two as we recover from COVID and changes there, in addition to any federal spending changes that might have occurred because of potentially the war overseas. And so we'll like to make that adjustment and see if there's any demand changes in some of the skill sets that are out there. And so, of course, then we'll dive deeper into some of the occupations as well and see if there's any difference on the education attainment out there at the regional level. What's exciting this year is we're going to add a couple new industries or sectors to look at and see if some of what's happened with some of the investments in the region and what that looks like from a supply and demand perspective. So we're excited to look at 2 new industries, one being cybersecurity. I know that there's a strong demand out there for cybersecurity, and so we'll look into what that demand looks like at the regional level, as well as what is education doing to keep up with that on the education institutions, and are they keeping up with some of the demand for in that industry. The second one that we're looking at is drones. And so we're excited to be kind of in the forward thinking and what is to come in the future. And so we'll look at some of the programs that are available in the region and how they might support some of this future growth and demand in skill sets for those type of occupations and opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. And we are excited to see that data because we like to make decisions based on data, and that way we're making sure our investment dollars are truly bringing home the maximum return on investment. So Erin, thank you so much for joining me and updating our listeners about Able Operations and the work that you're doing with Florida's Great Northwest. And we appreciate you all for tuning in to another episode of Broadcasting Northwest Florida.